Welcome in, everybody, whether you're on the East Coast, West Coast, or around the world. This is Coast to Coast. Got everybody here today. How's it going, guys?
I feel like a champion. My voice does not, but I do. Feeling a little road weary, but just still on cloud nine, like on cloud nine. How can you not be?
Yep.
It's like I mean, I this road has been such a going to all the games, every game I've been to, and to end with a Super Bowl victory after all is said and done is just like amazing. And to have all of the things happen the way they have, and the first four games be like starting out in Brazil and then coming home and losing the actual home opener, and then going going down to New Orleans saying, hey, we'll be back here again, and then going to Tampa and getting stomped, and then winning 16 of 17 games.
Mm-hmm. Having Nick Sirianni yell at the fans and get criticism for that, and then that actually seemed to be what awakened your team. Is Nick Sirianni yelling at the fans and then taking the criticism he took, and he's like, you know what, screw it, we'll just win 16 to 17.
And like beyond everything else, like those first two playoff games, they were still a little shaky. Like you didn't know, beating Washington the way they did, like was just okay. Mm-hmm. Now we got the Chiefs. It's going to be a tough battle, but you never know. And they just took it to them.
And what I find most impressive too is Kellen Moore was just hired by the New Orleans Saints. I don't know if you just saw that come through, but
yeah, I'm sure.
Usually when you have offensive or defensive coordinators interviewing for a job, like during the playoffs, the next game they tend to lay an egg. And you can look at kind of the Ben Johnson situation in Detroit, where he was taking those interviews during the bye week of the playoffs, gets to that first game, and Ben Johnson really did not call that good of an offensive game. Like, you kind of could see, like, the head coaching interviews are kind of in the back of his mind, like, I'm going to take this job when we win or whatever. I give Kellen Moore a ton of credit. He was taking interviews. He was linked to that Saints job heading into that game. He did not let that affect his game plan. He went out and called arguably one of his best game plans of the year.
I can't argue with that. I have to say that probably Nick Sirianni had something to do with that.
No, yeah, he did, and that's another credit to the coaching staff too. Like everyone knows that Kellen Moore was most likely gone after this season to be a head coach, and Nick Sirianni did not want to let that linger and be like, I don't want to lose this game because my offensive coordinator's head isn't with it or whatever. Like, Nick Sirianni made sure that everything was in play. Vic Fangio called a hell of a game. Kellen Moore called a hell of a game. Everything went your way.
I tell you, Vic Fangio, I think it was the first time Vic Fangio has beaten, Big Red. It was like, definitely a playoffs.
Yeah, I thought he beat him once in Denver when it was one of those like meaningless Week 17 games where Kansas City.
Then I don't count that. You know what I mean? That's not something that I even consider. I mean, this was, but I can't even say that Vic Fangio, because Vic Fangio didn't really do much. So let's go back and take a look. Vic Fangio exactly called zero blitzes.
He didn't have
not one blitz. That front four was just amazing. I mean, Carter could not be stopped. Davis could not be stopped. Nolan Smith was the guy that they drafted in the first round. That he has played amazing over this last, I want to say, 8 weeks. By far the most improved player on the team.
Yeah.
The cornerbacks were just the cornerbacks. I mean, he couldn't even look Quinyon Mitchell's way. Couldn't even look his way. There was nothing to look at. It's like I think about, the long touchdowns that they started to score at the very end. And I'm like, okay, we doused the coach in Gatorade for 3 minutes in, 3 minutes left in the game.
Yeah.
They scored another touchdown after that, and but at that point we were already celebrating. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
exactly.
It was already over. And there's not much that could be said about it. It was just absolutely amazing, and I can't wait to. Yeah, the parade's going to happen on Friday. I think that they made some announcements to that. Um, I would say that the biggest reason, obviously, I think, is the trenches. Obviously, the running game was not going to work. I knew it wasn't going to work.
And that's kind of why I think the big reason why you guys were able to win as big as you did, because I think Kansas City focused so much on Saquon Barkley. Like, that was their game plan going in. They were not going to let Saquon beat them. They were going to force Jalen Hurts to beat them. Well, Jalen Hurts beat him, and Jalen Hurts beat him quite often.
Well, and going back to 2 years ago, Jalen Hurts outplayed Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for that last drive where Mahomes ran for 30-some yards and stuff like that, I mean, Jalen Hurts was the leading rusher for both teams.
Yeah, he had 72.
Right. And that was because he just, everybody was spread out for the passes. They had to try to double everybody. Well, there was nobody left in the middle of the field, so he could just run to the middle of the field. It was interesting how it all kind of played out, and I expected it. Chris Jones, you didn't hear Chris Jones's name.
No.
And realistically, they had that one sack, and that was because they triple teamed Chris Jones on that one. So the one guy was on one-on-one and just happened to beat
Nick Bolton or whatever.
Yeah, he just happened to beat Dickerson.
Yeah.
And that was because it was one of those stunts where he kind of rolled in on him and was able to get on the inside of him and just kind of beat him on the inside by speed. But it was just a total beatdown. So much so, I know we talked about this on like Thursday of last week. I'm like, could it possibly be, like, I didn't expect that Kansas City would be in that quicksand mode. That I just was like, okay, I don't think that there is a possibility that, we could smack them in the mouth and put them in that position where they've never been in before.
Well, they're so used to playing from behind too that even when it was 17-0 after the Cooper DeJean pick six, you never felt like Kansas City was quite out of it yet. And then when Zach Bond picked off Patrick Mahomes on that next possession, I think that was kind of when the entire Chiefs team just gave up. Because at that point, it's just like, well, if they score here, we're down 24-0, and nothing is going our way. And I said this to Bo yesterday. Travis Kelce looked like he checked out in the first quarter. Like, he had that one drop on the opening possession that wasn't a great pass, but it was still a pass that he would catch every other Super Bowl. When he let that ball drop, it just seemed like he mentally checked out the rest of the game because he, even when he was supposed to block, did next to nothing, made no effort to even try to push the defender out of the way to give Mahomes more time.
Yeah, it's not like he's had a great year anyway.
No, he hasn't had a great year, but like in the playoffs, to his credit, he started to look a little bit more like the playoff Kelce that everyone knows, especially against the Bills in the AFC Championship game. He had a lot of big catches, especially in the fourth quarter. Like, he was starting to get back in that mindset, but it just looked like he was never mentally there on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could believe that. I wonder if the questions, when you looked at him on Media Row,
mm-hmm.
he was annoyed already.
Yeah, he was. Like, he was annoyed the whole week. He was annoyed the whole week.
And I feel like that took its toll. You know what I mean? It's just like, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to show everybody how much of a champion I am. And then, it's like, then you come up against an immovable object. Mm-hmm. And you run into that wall a couple times and then you're like, okay, I can't do it. I'm just so fed up and angry and frustrated already that there's not much else that can be happening.
Yeah.
Well, and to Rob's point here, oops, it moved as soon as I went to hit it. All the ref talk made him mad immediately too.
Yeah.
Like they, Mahomes looked like he had some fun with it, but Kelsey was immediately irritated by it.
Well, because I mean, the truth of the matter is, and I'm interested to see this week's New Heights because
Yeah.
obviously he's going to talk about it. He did not go to the press conference afterwards.
Nope.
And the first
Mhm.
call of the game,
Yeah.
was very, very ticky tack, very, very ticky tack.
And when you
yeah.
were watching the game on TV, obviously, Bo, you were at the bar. I don't know how much you could have actually heard it, but like both Tom Brady and Kevin Burkhardt said they didn't think it was a penalty. The head of officiating that's in the booth with them didn't think it was a penalty. But then during the commercial, the head of officiating called New York to find out why they threw the flag on that. They threw the flag on it because A.J. Brown hit the defender in the face mask. And basically, New York said, when you touch the guy in the face or the helmet, you have to throw the flag, even if it's like a ticky-tack call. So I'm like, if we're going up with that, I can agree with the flag, even though they were both hand fighting.
So the thing is I agree that they could have thrown a flag there, but it shouldn't have been OPI. What it should have been is illegal contact.
Yeah.
Right. And so, which is a wildly different yardage.
It's
right?
5 yards as opposed to the 15 or whatever.
It was 10 yards.
Exactly.
10 yards for
10, yeah.
offensive pass interference.
Yeah. So, I mean, but still, like, that changes the way a drive looks.
Yeah.
So,
and that's why when like even like Tom Brady was like saying how he disagreed with the call, I'm like, you hit the guy in the face, you're gonna get a penalty every single time, regardless if it's a quarterback that barely gets touched. If you literally take one finger and hit the quarterback on the side of the head, it's 15 yards. So I mean, if AJ Brown's like pushing the guy back by his helmet, yes, there's a lot of hand fighting, but you're still getting him in the face. Chances are you're getting flagged for that.
I mean, he didn't push him back. I mean, his hand touched it.
Yeah,
it was a questionable call, right? Like you can see how they got there, but it was a questionable call. Now, ultimately, it didn't matter. But
it's one of those where if the ball is incomplete, I don't think they throw the flag because then it's a turnover on downs anyways. Versus he caught it, so then they're like, well, there was the contact to the head.
He actually threw that flag right away.
Did he?
Yeah, it was immediate.
The end.
Yeah, the moment that he did that. That flag was thrown right away. And immediately we thought like, here we go again. We're going to have to compete against them. But then the next set of downs, I mean, literally it was, I mean, they couldn't move at all. They could not move at all.
Yeah, they
and
could.
That was,
what are you talking about? They could move backwards.
The
offensive line could move backwards quite easily the whole game.
It was like, first off, that offensive line did not come to play. I mean,
the only offensive lineman that came to play was Creed Humphrey, the center. And by the fourth quarter, I think he was so exhausted from doing everything for the offensive line that he's just like, F it. They're just going to push me back at this point now.
Well, they were supposed to have one of the best guards in the game.
And he was non-existent.
Oh, my God. He got blown up by Nolan Smith.
He was a turnstile.
Nolan Smith he pulled one time, and Nolan Smith just blew him up.
Yep.
There was nothing. Listen, 23 yards in the first half. 23 yards. They had 45 yards in penalties in the first half and 23 yards of total offense. 1 first down to the Eagles, 10 first downs.
Yep.
And it was 24
I mean, if it wasn't for garbage time points at the end, you guys were going to have a 2-1 time of possession for the game. Like it was crazy.
Yeah. And like I know there's not many positives to take away from Kansas City, but the one positive that I did say for Kansas City was it took them a long time, but I think they finally figured out how to use Xavier Worthy because Xavier Worthy had a hell of a game in that Super Bowl for a rookie. Like all season long, they've been using him in like jet sweeps and all these gadget plays because they've tried to get his speed to the outside to use his speed to everyone's advantage. You're the fastest guy in the NFL. Throw the ball as far as you can throw and let the guy go run and get it. Because chances are it's going to be pass interference or it's going to be an overthrow because I don't think there's too many people that are going to outrun him to a football if he's got a chance to get up to top speed.
Right. I tell you, as I think about it, obviously I saw Tyreek Hill this week in Radio Row and stuff like that. And I know that
Yeah.
he wanted to get out of Miami. There's a piece of me that thinks that they may actually trade for him.
Cool.
Kansas City.
I kind of thought the same thing because I don't think D-Hop's going to be back.
No way. He had such that drop was such a bad drop.
Yep.
I mean, you could say that it was thrown a little bit on the outside, but he's just a shell of himself. He's not anywhere near where he used to be.
I don't think, like I said, and then you have Hollywood Brown, who's technically on a 2-year deal, but I'm not going to be surprised if the Chiefs cut ties with him because he only played 2 games during the regular season and then really didn't do much in the playoffs when he had an opportunity. And then you have Rice coming back worthy, and I think Schuster's back just because he fits that system perfectly as like the number 3 or 4 option.
You have to bring Juju back. Like he works so well there.
Yeah, maybe not in this game because obviously, they
couldn't do anything in this game.
Well, Cooper DeJean was just all over him.
Yeah, it was.
And it's just, I was like, all right, that's the end of that. And then of course, I watched Mahomes do certain things that he never does, like jump pass, like that one pass to Kelsey that broke the record finally for Kelsey, and I congratulations on that. Obviously, it's like he's been to all these Super Bowls to be able to have more receptions than any other receiver, including Jerry Rice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's something to be said for that. You know what I mean? It's like it's beyond everything else. These guys are Hall of Famers. These guys are Hall of Famers. You know what I mean? So they might be a little long in the tooth, and the Eagles have the youngest defense in football.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt in my mind that it's like they can run it back. There's no doubt in my mind that they can run it back. It's like, in fact, when you think about it, most of the guys are on rookie contracts. Now, I think you got to give Jalen Carter an extension now. I think you do it now so that you can give him extra money now. You can almost defray some of that money now. Because he's the one you absolutely cannot lose. You also have to think about.
I think the only one that you guys might lose on defense is Josh Sweat, because I think Josh Sweat's going to have such a big free agent market, especially after how he performed in the Super Bowl. He had 2 sacks or something like that, or 2.5 sacks in the Super Bowl. Like, I think Josh Sweat's going to be the most sought after pass rusher in free agency, where he's going to get such a big contract that I think the Eagles will be like, "You earned it, go take it."
Well, I think Williams too. I think Williams is the same situation. That defensive line played so strong that who wouldn't want to try to pick it off. I've already started to hear rumors. Like the first rumor that came to mind was, would I trade a first rounder and Devonta Smith for Myles Garrett?
Oof.
And I'm like, no, I don't think I would. I wouldn't do that. I mean, why? After the way this guy, why not just play the guys that are here?
Right.
I feel like money being everything. I feel like after you win a Super Bowl, there is more likely to get a little bit of a hometown discount than there is any other time.
Guess depending on the situation, like if you're a 29, 30-year-old who may have already gotten like not necessarily an extension, but has gone through like your 2 years of being franchise tagged or whatever, then you're probably not giving a hometown discount because you're like, I'm 29 going on 30. Like, this is my big contract that I'm going to sign. I'm going to take it.
To answer is Zach Bond gone? No. I think Zach Bond gets some money. And he gets some money, and I expect that if I was Howie, how I would do him is that I would give him a very big signing bonus and extend it over 5 years. Like, you got to give him like a 5-year contract, which sounds ridiculous in the NFL, but I think that's how you play this game with him. He's young enough; he's able to do that, and we haven't had a guy who's been able to do that in the middle really since Jeremiah Trotter. And Jeremiah Trotter had his limits as well, where Bond does not. I mean, I feel like that we finally found our guy to really be able to take over this, and he's like an Urlacher. Like
I was gonna say he's your version of like an Urlacher or like a mini Ray Lewis without like obviously the physicality of Ray Lewis, because Ray Lewis was everywhere on the field. Like he would guard the tight end, he'd go out and get a running back, he'd blitz you. Like that's what Zach Bond does. He does everything.
So yeah, Francisco, that's not gonna get Myles Garrett. No, Nakobe Dean and Bryce Huff for Myles Garrett, even a first rounder. You'd have to give up 2 first rounders, and why would you do that? Yeah. So I'm not.
I mean, that's the thing is you don't need him.
No,
like would it be
right
cool?
Now,
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could add him, I mean, why wouldn't you? But
Frankie put up a comment there earlier too, asking like what our super early Super Bowl predictions would be.
Yeah, I saw that.
I would honestly not be surprised if these same 2 teams met again, because you look at both rosters. Both rosters.
I will tell you,
I don't think KC does.
Yeah, I think I'll be 100% honest. I think this is a blow to Kansas City. They have a down year next year. I would be surprised if they win the division. I think that this is going to affect them in a way that they're going to have to do a retooling completely. Now you got Patrick Mahomes, and Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback. Yeah. He had a very bad game. A very bad game. But he's still a great quarterback. And great quarterbacks figure it out. And he took the blame. You know, there was no like, oh yeah, well they just were too strong for us and blah blah blah. He took full responsibility for that.
He was the only one that took any accountability.
Yeah.
Out of all the players, he was literally the only one that really took any accountability. Even though a lot of it wasn't his fault. I mean, some of the throws are not that great, but when you don't have any protection, he really didn't have to take the blame. He could have just been like, he could have thrown some people under the bus without doing it, but he shouldered the blame for pretty much that whole team.
I mean, if there was ever a group effort loss, it was that. Like, everybody played that.
And no, I do not agree that Andy Reid needs to hang it up. Why would you say Andy Reid needs to hang it up? Because
only 5 Super Bowls in 6 years. I mean, man.
I mean, 7 straight AFC championship games where the quarterback that he has now has never seen anything less than an AFC championship.
Also, again, here's why I don't like Dave Portnoy. I'm gonna go ahead and preface this statement with that. Sure. He's like, nobody can ever say about that. They can't compare this team with the Patriots dynasty and stuff like that. Listen, the Patriots never made it to 7 AFC championship games in a row. They never did. So I don't want to hear it. Oh, they never got beat this bad in a Super Bowl and whatever. They lost to a wild card team they shouldn't have lost to. Oh, you could say it was a miraculous catch. Brady played like ass in that game. The reason why the Rams didn't beat you guys in that Super Bowl was because McVay outcoached himself. That he didn't need to. Belichick didn't even need to coach that team. And you're going to say Belichick is better than Andy Reid? Belichick is a great, great coach. But Andy Reid is
what has Belichick done without Tom Brady? You at least saw Andy Reid have success in Philadelphia with Donovan McNabb, who he was a very good quarterback like when he was playing, but he's not viewed as like a top 20 quarterback all time.
I mean, they had a good season with Alex Smith.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna say. Like Alex Smith's best season ever came with Andy Reid the year before Patrick Mahomes took over. Like, yeah, now Andy Reid has Patrick Mahomes, but all the success he had in Philadelphia with, I mean, above average quarterback play, maybe great a couple seasons, but not like MVP caliber play year in and year out. Andy Reid is a hell of a coach.
Oh,
no,
I mean,
Frankie,
I don't think anybody's.
I guess I got to look at that, Frankie, because I tell you, the Jets interrupted all of that for you guys. I thought it was like 6 and 6.
That was the championship game, though.
Yeah,
the championship game.
No, Jets didn't make it to the
Jets
Super
was
Bowl.
the divisional game because the Jets lost to Pittsburgh in the AFC championship game that one year to get to the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
And they went back to back to the AFC championship games, right?
The Patriots beat them 1 year in the AFC championship game. The Steelers beat the Jets the next year, but that was back in like 2010 and 2011. So they could have made 8 in a row after that, just because that was 12 years ago. Because that was the last time the Jets made
the division was terrible.
Because that was the last time the Jets made the playoffs was those years with Rex Ryan.
So, but to say that this team, this Chiefs team, shouldn't be in the same breath as the Patriots team, it's only because it hasn't gone there long enough. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I
They
mean, that's
haven't
the
been
thing.
playing long enough. So it's if the Chiefs make it back to the AFC Championship game next year, which is I think a distinct possibility.
Yeah.
That could be possible. I don't think so. I mean, I personally don't think so, but it's still a possibility. I mean, you still got to put them in the same breath. You still have to put them in the same breath. This is just my
I
opinion.
mean, how can you not? I mean,
Yeah,
again,
it's
this
the
is
fact that Dave Portnoy's like,
appearances.
oh, well, since they got crushed by the Eagles and blah, 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 Tom Brady's best game in the Super Bowl was a loss.
Zero people agree with this. Even with his age, like nobody thinks that Reed is. I find it crazy.
Like
that people are like, you lost the Super Bowl, man, you're washed. You should hang it up. You realize like that's the last game of the season, right? Like that's what everybody plays for.
Do you realize how many coaches have never?
Like, only one winner is in that game. Like I don't get this train of thought. Like, oh, you lost the championship, you're washed.
Do you realize how many coaches have never made it that far?
Well, that's the thing. You beat out 30 other dudes. Like, what are you talking about?
Like, do you realize how many Super Bowl rings he has and how many other coaches don't even have one ring, let alone how many coaches haven't even made it to the AFC NFC Championship game?
I get that Brad is just rage baiting. Like, I understand that's what he's going for here. But, I mean, that is the most ridiculous statement.
Yeah.
Now, if he wants to hang it up, sure. But he doesn't need to.
I mean, if
he goes out on his own terms, he absolutely goes out.
If he's going to call Andy Reid old, then what about Pete Carroll? Pete Carroll's 7 years older than Andy Reid, and yes, Pete Carroll took a year off, but he's back to coaching now. It's not like he's hanging up for good and saying I'm done.
Well, and he didn't take a year off because he wanted to. He took a year off because
in fact, I would even go as far as to say this. If Andy Reid, for whatever reason, left Kansas City this year,
he would go one more place.
He could go to the Jets and take a quarterback somewhere in the NFL to the Jets, and I bet you he could get to the AFC Championship game.
Or at worst, a divisional round, depending on who it wins.
He's that good of a coach. He is that good of a coach.
No question.
So I'm telling you, he's still got more left. Andy Reid is going to be the winningest head coach of all time in the NFL. He's going to beat Shula.
Yeah.
He's going to it's even if Kansas City has a bad year next year, and I say a bad year being 9-8 or 8-9.
Yeah.
He
I think he's already
seasons to set the all-time record.
Yeah, I think he's like 13 wins away, really.
Oh, I thought he was further than that. I thought he was further.
I'll look it up right now. I know he might.
I thought he was. I thought he was like 16 or 18 wins from where he needs to be. But I mean, that being said, that's 2 seasons.
Yeah.
That's not a big deal. And that's 2 average seasons, right? Like that, you're not great. I mean, obviously, there's an outside chance you could do it with the playoffs next year if you ran the table, I guess. But I mean.
Andy Reid is at 273. Bill Belichick is 302. George Halas was 318, and Don Shula was 328.
Okay, never mind. He's a lot further away than I thought he was.
He'll pass Belichick, but does he get past
he actually needs to coach for 3 or 4 more years.
Yeah. And I think he will. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Exactly.
I mean, you're still good at what you do. I mean, he's only 64?
66, going on 67.
Yeah, I mean, he's got time.
I mean, Marv Levy coached up until he was 71?
Yeah. Marv Levy was older than that I thought he was mid-70s. I thought Marv Levy was done at 75, 76.
Yeah, but he was just a shell in the last 3 years. Yeah, I mean, this is not we're not talking Bear Bryant and stuff like that, or Joe Paterno, who was not really the coach of the team anymore after that. It was
sure.
Yep.
Sure. And a quick shout out to my mom. It's her birthday today. Happy birthday.
So if we're counting,
happy birthday, Mom.
If we're counting regular season wins and playoff wins, Andy Reid is at 301. The 273 was the regular season win. So he's at 301 total. He's 23 behind George Halas. 31 behind Bill Belichick, and he's still 45 behind Don Shula. So to have a shot at Don Shula, he'd have to coach, we'll say, 5 more years and average 10 wins a season. And that would put him at 351, 350. Which very doable for him, because even if he has a down year at 9-8 or 8-9, he comes back the next season at 12-5. That averages out to be 2 straight 10-win seasons, which keeps him on pace to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as long as everything stays status quo, you know what I mean? That's part of the purpose of having your offensive coordinator be the same guy every year. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I guess we'll see. Either way, he's a Hall of Fame coach.
Yeah, without question.
Without a doubt. So, leaving it at that. I don't know. I saw a question earlier, like, who's my thoughts on the new offensive coordinator since we lost Kellen Moore. Yeah. I'm a firm believer that I think Frank Reich comes back to Philadelphia. I think that it's I'm a firm believer of that. I think that he's got a great rapport with Nick Sirianni. They think very similar. They have very similar styles in the way that they want to offense the team. I think that Frank Reich is not interested in becoming a head coach again.
Not at his age, no.
Yeah, and I think that that's if that happens, and I can't say that it is, but if that happens, I firmly believe that the Eagles will be back to the Super Bowl next year. They will go for the repeat, and they will be in that. They will be, I feel, obviously it's tough. The NFL is tough, and our division is the toughest out there. The NFC is the toughest division.
The NFL is the only sport, in my opinion, where you can go from first place to last place and last place to first place from one year to the next based on how you draft and based on what you get in free agency.
Well, and injuries and stuff too. I mean, it's such
in baseball, yes, you have injuries in baseball, but baseball is such a long season that eventually every team's going to have injuries. So you can go from maybe first place to third place or last place to third place, but there's not too many times where you take dead last in the baseball division one year and then the next year you fly up on the first place. Like the NFL, you see that every year where a team like Minnesota, for example, this year, team that was dead last in the NFC North last year, they were playing for the division title in week 18. You see that all the time based on free agency in the draft. It's just how the NFL has always worked because there's so much parity sometimes.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's one of the things I like about the NFL is, outside of some poorly run teams that find their way to the bottom every year, for the most part, if you're a decent franchise, you can do exactly that, right? And the salary cap helps with that.
Mm-hmm.
Having that hard cap,
it helps that you got the biggest deal is, and this is one of the things that I felt that maybe Howie learned from Pittsburgh. Howie was great with making trades and getting free agents and stuff like that to come to Philadelphia. But Howie has become by far the best drafter in the league. When you think about since the Jefferson Gaff, when we didn't
thank you for that, by the way.
Since that, you know what? And I always thought he was much taller.
Who?
Jefferson.
No, because he played the slot in college. Because
I'm bigger than he is.
Yeah, well, he played the slot in college because in college, Jamar Chase was on the outside. Jefferson was the slot. So Jefferson was always the slot receiver at LSU, but when he came to the NFL, they basically said he was one of those receivers that you could line up pretty much anywhere on the field. So then they just started moving him around. And then they found out it's like, you're good on the outside. We'll keep you out here.
Yeah. So, but I kind of believe that the way that he has been drafting since the Jefferson Gaff, that as long as he continues to do that, when you have, I think it's 7 of his 8 first-round picks since that pick are starters on this team.
Well, look at what you did with the Carson Wentz trade and who you ended up drafting in place of that Carson Wentz trade. That alone shows you how good
A.J. Brown falls into that. Cooper DeJean was the last piece of that.
Smith falls into that. Who you got out of that trade. And that just goes to show you what kind of a drafter he is. It's just like we traded away our franchise quarterback at the time, and we literally landed 4 starting players in place of him. And all 4 made a big difference in the Super Bowl.
That is correct. And does Dallas Goedert stay with the Eagles next season? I don't see where you'd go.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still got another year on his contract, does he not?
Yeah, I think they have the option, which Philly's going to pick it up. So
yeah, of course.
That's what I would.
Or it's a player option, and he'll pick up his player option.
I did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they were getting us confetti. They everybody from the NFL. I mean, obviously we were holding the sign up, and that's when everybody kind of saw us. They didn't really show us. If you were watching the stream, you got to see me in the stream, but you did not get to see me on TV. And everybody kind of saw me on the big screen there, and a big shout out to ESPN. Thank you for doing that. And thank you to Gino from the Eagles for putting me in that, the hype video, like in the Super Bowl. Super Bowl, the first face that you see is mine.
Yep.
For that video. Thank you for everybody for doing that. I mean, that was just awesome to kind of be that, large, that I've been doing all of this. The only guys that went to 21 games as well this year were the players. As far as I know, I don't know of anybody else that did all 21 games. And listen, if they did, God bless them, because I know how hard it was on me. You know what I mean? It was a tough road. It's, and I don't even play.
Yeah.
It's like, I put those shoulder pads on just about every game I missed. When we did the Kelly Greens, I did not do the shoulder pads for those 2 games, but just putting on the shoulder pads every day and going out there and grinding every day and stuff like that.
Look at how long some of your days were too. Like the players, yes, they take obviously the beating on the field, but realistically, the players are only in pads 4 hours out of the day on game day. You're sometimes in pads like 10 hours, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, I was in pads from 10 o'clock in the morning at Super Bowl Sunday, 10 o'clock in the morning. I finally took them off. I got home, or I got back to the place I was staying at 11:30 at night. I did not go to Bourbon Street because I just did not think I'd be able to leave. It's like there was so much that was happening.
You would have been able to leave. You might have had those bracelets that are tied together, but
I didn't even drink. I did not drink at all. The entire, I wanted to take it all in. Like I said, I emceed a tailgate that the governor showed up to, that Rob McElhaney showed up to, that, I got the players, Corey Clement, Alice Thomas, Dr. Irving Fryer, like everybody was showing up to the tailgate doing that. And I'm the MC. The same band, that Snack Time, the band that played in Jason Kelsey's thing, they call it Late Night, was there. As my voice is starting to give away again, it's like, and then going into the game, taking pictures with everybody going into the game. I mean, I had to have taken, 5,000 pictures. I was on the end. I wound up getting an aisle seat, which was absolutely amazing. Like that made things real easy. The ushers were real helpful to that, like in terms of, hey, listen, you got to get going. You got to get going. You can't clog up this area. I was like, perfect. I'm like, awesome. Because it's like, it starts to get too much. And then they did not allow anybody like that to do that during the game, because I wanted to watch the game. It was like the first game I actually got to watch it. It's in its entirety. I couldn't tell you even, there were kids sitting behind me that were specifically there for the halftime show, and their father's like, hey, listen, is it okay if you sit down for this? And I'm like, dude, I'm going to do you even better. I'm going to disappear. And he's like, thank you so much. And I asked the kids, I'm like, yeah. And they were Eagles fans. So I'm like, did you love the halftime show? Oh my God, it was so great. Blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? It's just, and that's, I'm glad that it was like that, because I mean, I'm sure, these guys spent a lot of money, but they knew, they knew what they were getting into. Hey, Joe, I'm always going to remember that the Dallas Cowboys love you.
Stuff.
But you know what? It's like it's not even am I too big or whatever. Listen, it has nothing to do with that. I am just a fan like everybody else. I wear better makeup.
Nah.
It's true.
You know, that's just it. And like I said, it's even people were asking me how long did it take? I said this is Super Bowl Sunday. Took an hour and a half for this one, and I brought touch up. I never bring touch up makeup, but had to bring some touch up because I thought it was like I'm doing whatever, and you know,
Which guy are you talking about? When are you talking about Kendrick? Like I'm not sure who you're talking about.
I don't know.
Unless it's the protester that had the Syrian flag behind him.
Oh, I missed that one.
Yeah, there's a protester that ran on the field and was behind stage of the Kendrick show that was wearing a Syrian flag on his back. And that's why if you watch the halftime show on TV, like they had, it was when the dancers were behind them, and they were zoomed in on Kendrick, and all of a sudden the camera cut off, and the camera from the right was focusing on him because the Syrian guy was running behind him. And they didn't want that shot in the main camera because then security came and just leveled him behind the stage. So then they ended up switching to like a different camera mode, and then Kendrick noticed what was going on, so then you can kind of see him like figure out what camera to walk to, and then he starts walking to the new one that was on focus of him, so he had to kind of adjust his set a little bit for about a minute or two.
Gotcha. But if you were talking about Kendrick himself, I mean, it'd probably be a while before he came back anyway, because he was on solo this time, but he was also on when it was Snoop and Dre. So, I mean, it's not like it had been that many years anyway. So, I mean, it'd probably be a while before he's back but I don't think he's banned from it. But if there was a protester, I'm sure they're banned.
No, that's what West Coast One was talking about, is the Syria guy banned. And like, yeah, I think
without a question.
I think he's still probably in jail in New Orleans somewhere.
This one's popped up a couple of times. Graham retiring?
From what I've heard, no. That he's got one more season left.
Okay.
That he wants to do one more season. Obviously, he played a couple of snaps in this game. He was not, he wasn't the biggest factor in that. But, yeah, they needed to have him out there for a minute. You know, it was enough for him to be able to kind of, doing the thing. I didn't see that I made 69 News, but that doesn't surprise me. Like I thought people were going to have Philly sports guy fatigue at the end of this week.
Yeah.
From everybody seeing me the way they did. It's just, I appreciate it. I appreciate the fact that people, love seeing me, and that's, and it was not more evident than in that ESPN clip. The difference between Chiefs and Eagles fans. I mean, even like it was like even the Eagles fan that they showed right after me, there wasn't the noise. Like it was like, and they don't ever show the same guy on the big screen twice. Typically, they showed me 4 times in the Super Bowl on the big screen.
Yeah,
every time was like audible. It was amazing, and it's and that's like I said, I'm humbled by that. That so many people enjoy seeing me that much. Like I said, it's not anything that I'm not patting myself on the back. Hey, listen, I work very hard to do the things that I do. And
you probably when you started doing this, you probably never expected yourself to get this popular.
You know what?
In Philadelphia, maybe, but not like outside of Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like you work towards something. You know what I mean? Obviously, I wanted to become the first ever professional fan.
Yeah.
No, there's no script to this. There's no manual that you read. To be everywhere, you have to be everywhere. And that's been the hardest of this all. You know what I mean? That, hey, when Rob McElhaney comes up to me and he says, I'm without face paint, and he goes, I know who you are. I love everything that you're doing. Man, I see you everywhere. When I have Rob McElhaney doing that is, I'm like, Rob, you're the only one that I've ever had to fumble for my phone for. Like, it's like I am never without my phone or I have to fumble for it. I had to fumble for my phone, and that was out in London.
Yeah.
And I asked him straight out. I'm like, all right, I only have one real question for you, Rob. Is Wrexham a Philly team? And he said, yes, 100%. Obviously, Wrexham's much smaller than Philadelphia, but it has the same type of Philadelphia feel in the midst of all this. And I said, well, then I need a jersey. And he says, you touch base with me. We're going to get you the last 4 kits for that team. I says, all right, I'm coming then. I'm coming. Here comes the Philly Wrexham guy. But I mean, it's just those types of things. I tell you, like, I don't know if I mentioned this before on the show, the Shedeur Sanders moment. I'm trying to get the video of that. Like, it's when Shedeur Sanders is walking by, and I'm like, hold on, guys. I'm doing the middle of an interview, and I'm like, hold on, guys. Hey, Shedeur, good luck at the draft. I'll see you there. I'm going to be there myself. And he's like, I know. I see you everywhere. It's like Shedeur Sanders saying that he sees me everywhere. And now, like I said, I expect people from Philadelphia to know who I am.
Mhm.
I don't expect Shedeur Sanders to know who I am. And for him to say, "I see you everywhere," that's awesome. That's absolutely awesome.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's so, and that's in Colorado. Go figure.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so I guess it was one of his backup dancers. So that's interesting.
One of his backup dancers was the one doing the
protester.
Oh, got you. Because there was a guy who said that, and I don't know how true this is or not, that there was a streaker. I don't remember seeing a streaker, but there was a streaker, and he made a bet about a streaker and then won the bet, but lost all the money. I mean, I think that there's a rule on that, but I don't know that.
What are you talking about? All the money he made, he had to probably use for bail.
He only had $10,000 bail.
Oh.
Pays to get him out of.
I think it was a $20,000 bet. It was a $20,000 bet, and it was like 5-2 odds, something like that. So he won $50,000. He said he spent $10,000 on the ticket, spent $10,000 on bail. He wins $10,000.
Yeah, I mean, and then you can never.
Never go into an NFL stadium again.
Yeah, so I don't think that's really worth it, but not for $10,000.
No. And you'll always be known as that guy who didn't get very far as a streaker on the Super Bowl. So yeah, I mean, this has been a fight. It's been, like I said, 6 years of traveling with the team, and not like I said, not with the team. Like I do this kind of
the team.
Yeah, like it's been tough, but you know what? If there was ever a time, I'm a guy who's big on sayings, and one of my sayings all the time is luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yep.
If there was ever somebody who was lucky this week, it was me.
Mm-hmm.
I was prepared for the moment. And 2 years ago had to add to that. I wanted this to happen 2 years ago, and it wasn't the same. And then we have guys come on our show like, that blame me for the comet coming in and hitting the earth and killing the dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs, yeah, exactly.
It's like, Brian, guess what? We are both Super Bowl champions. You are an Eagles fan, just like I am, and you can't say that I am anymore because we won the championship, baby. And you know who was there? And you celebrated the same way I did. I'll definitely take a picture with you next time I see you.
Yeah, I'm not not painting up. Not painting up.
But like I said, it's been a whirlwind. Like I said, I came home last night. I went downstairs to my living room. I got myself a drink, had that drink, and came up and slept. And my father called me up this morning at like 10 o'clock this morning. He's like, "You're up." I am now. So,
thanks for that.
but it is what it is. And thoughts on Kellen Moore, Billy? I wish him the best of luck. I really do wish him the best of luck. He leaves a champion, and there's so many guys that don't get the opportunity because they let that slip away because of the opportunity they're about to walk into.
Yep.
And he knew it. He knew he was going to take the job. He's going to have a really tough job over there in New Orleans.
No
That's
question.
not a simple thing that he's walking into. And I hope they give him the time to be able to try to make the changes and stuff like this.
I mean,
but
you have to, right?
I hope it's not a.
because
I hope
you're
it's not
taking
another
over a
Gerard
dumpster
Mayo.
fire.
I hope it's not another Gerard Mayo situation or another like Frank Wright situation in Carolina where it's like, 11 games in, you're 1-10. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that because the ownership knows that it's a rough situation you're walking into, right? Like you're going to lose guy. Like this is as much of a full rebuild as you could possibly get.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't imagine that they're not going to give him a few years to get this right.
You hope. You hope, because who are we to say that? I mean, every time we think that they should give somebody a couple years, they're going to be like, hey, he lost the locker room in the first couple of weeks. Forget it. We're going to fire him.
Well, I mean, it's always a chance, right? Especially if you're comparing anything to the Panthers, right? Because they went through six coaches in 3 years. So I mean, anything's possible. But I would be surprised if the Saints went that route. They have a tendency to hold on to guys.
Yeah, maybe a little too long. But
do you think Kellen Moore will be able to get your offensive line coach or any other offensive coaches to go from Philadelphia to join him in New Orleans as like the OC or something?
Say that again.
Do you think Kellen Moore will be able to take the offensive line coach or anybody else?
Steichen is an Eagle through and through. He has made it through 4 regimes. He ain't going nowhere.
Do you think he'll be able to get anybody else from the offensive coaching staff to be his OC?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, there's been so much turnover as of late. I mean, I guess anything's possible. I mean, I could it be the wide receivers coach? I mean, I don't know a lot of the guys by name. When it comes to the coaching staff behind the scenes that make the offensive coordinator tick. So it's that being said, it's like, you know what I mean? If he does, like I said, my expectation is that, and I'm only speaking now. I have no idea who it could possibly be, but I'm thinking it's going to be Frank Reich. I think that there is a mentality of the Eagles, because after this, you have to give Sirianni an extension. He's been to 2 Super Bowls in 4 years, been to the playoffs all 4 years he's coached, and in the midst of everything else, all the turmoil, all of the stuff you hear from the moment of the first press conference to last night, or Sunday night, when he's up on stage, or really Monday morning, when he's up on stage lip syncing My Prerogative. I have the video of that, by the way. So actually, it was sent to me. It was sent to me by a friend of mine, but because I didn't stay for that part, I left a little early, which was a bummer. I now wish I was there for that.
Sure.
But him doing that whole song of My Prerogative, and how true is that? How true is that? That it's all these people talking all this stuff about me. Why can't they just let me live?
Yep.
And so did Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts said the same exact thing. It's like if all those guys bapping, all of them are got their tail between their legs and are like apologizing to Jalen Hurts and stuff like this. That 2 weeks ago, is Jalen Hurts enough to be and now they're asking, is Jalen Hurts elite?
Well, the thing that was funny is they act like he didn't ball out in the last one that they lost.
Yeah.
Like their defense is what failed them, right? I mean, Jalen Hurts had a day. I mean, he had 1 turnover. He had 1 turnover this time also. The difference is the defense showed up on Sunday, whereas a couple years ago, they were able to score on him. So, I mean, that's the biggest difference between these two, because Jalen Hurts, I mean, he balled out in the Super Bowl. He had great numbers. It is just on the losing side.
Right. Arguably, he outplayed Mahomes last time.
Yeah.
And you could say Mahomes was hurt, but it doesn't matter. He still outplayed him.
Yep.
In the last Super Bowl. And yeah, I mean, obviously the defense was part of that. I mean, and CJGJ said it then. He's like, you put us on a field that we weren't slipping on, and we destroy this offensive line. That was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And he was right.
Mhm.
You know, there was no slipping on this field.
Yeah.
You know, and it showed. It showed. And now they get new hardware. And just so that anybody knows, I don't know if anybody took my bets and said anything. I told everybody, 1, take the over. 2, take the Eagles. I said the score was going to be 36-24. I was close to that. 40-22 is actually a lot closer than you would think. And I said that Dallas Goedert was going to go over. He did not, but I didn't take the Santana Dotson, into effect. So really, those two were interchangeable. I chose the wrong guy, and I said Devonta Smith for an over 40-yard touchdown.
Well, and the non-prop plays that I think we both took also was Tails and the over on the national anthem. Yep.
He did that third line. He repeated that line 3 times. I'm like, I got the over.
Exactly. Yep. Nope. Soon as that started, I was like, oh, okay, here we go. I'm already 2 prop bets in. Game hasn't kicked off. I was like, Eagles going to win. Let's go. That being said, that does get us to the top of the hour here. Real quick, though, Joe.
He didn't do anything because Brandon Staley was garbage.
Well, so the thing is he actually did well with the Chargers. That offense was putting up points until Herbert got hurt. The defense was trash. So you can say what you want about Kellen Moore, but I mean, that offense was putting up almost 30 points a game and 400 yards. I don't know how much more you want the offense to do. That being said, we can pick that up tomorrow. If you are on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. Helps us bring our content to you. If you're watching on Roku TV, stay tuned for the next hour. Otherwise, we're going to get out of here. We'll see you tomorrow. Take it easy, everybody.
Later, guys.
Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on